A 14-year-old Spanish teenager was clinically dead for 3 minutes on a Saturday morning. But what she experienced in that brief instant goes far beyond everything you think you know about NDEs. A mysterious room, a burning table, an imposing figure, and a name spoken from above: Trump. The message she received is not just shocking. It is urgent and deeply unsettling. Stay until the end, because every detail counts. And if you feel that this testimony reached you for more than just coincidence, subscribe, leave your opinion in the comments, and share it, because maybe the moment is no longer so far away. My name is Noah. I am 14 years old. I live in a small village in Catalonia, surrounded by hills, fields, and a lot of silence. Our house is simple. There are 3 of us: my mother, my little brother Luca, and me. My father died 2 years ago, on a Saturday night in a car accident. Since then, something inside me changed. I don't talk much. I spend most of my time in my room drawing. But my drawings are not normal. I can't explain it. They are faces I've never seen. Eyes too deep, strange shapes, as if my hand obeyed something that doesn't come from my head. My mother says I have imagination, but this is something else. A few weeks ago, I started having a dream that repeated every night, the same one: a dark sky, red like fire covered by smoke, and hanging above me, a motionless clock without hands. In front of me, in a kind of room without walls, there was a man always sitting with his back turned. I could never see his face, but I felt that he knew I was there and that he was waiting for me. When I woke up, I felt dizzy and a silence so deep it hurt. Then the signs began. Headaches, intense, different from anything I had felt before, like waves inside my skull. Then came the fatigue, a strange exhaustion, impossible to shake off, not even by sleeping many hours. But the strangest thing was what I saw when I closed my eyes: shining geometric shapes. Like ancient symbols, spinning, changing, then disappearing. A triangle inside a circle, a spiral eye, a cross made of liquid light. It was beautiful, but unsettling. I didn't tell anyone, not my mother, not Luca. I was afraid they'd think I was losing my mind, so I kept everything quiet, like a fog that kept getting thicker around me. And then that morning came. Saturday, July 5th, 2025. It seemed like a normal day. Typical summer heat. My mother was making breakfast. Luca was watching cartoons. I went to the bathroom. I felt strange, more tired than usual, as if my body weighed tons. I looked in the mirror. My eyes looked darker than normal, and suddenly everything sped up. A stabbing pain in my head, a sharp buzzing in my ears. My legs trembled, and then nothingness. I remember falling backward. I felt the cold floor on my back, but it didn't hurt. It was like someone had pressed the pause button. There was no sound. No breath, no body, just a strange feeling, like the world was rewinding, like I was letting go of something. I don't know if there are words to describe it. According to the doctors, my heart stopped for 3 minutes. I stopped breathing. My mother found me on the floor with my eyes open, lifeless. Luca was screaming. She was screaming my name, shaking me, but I wasn't there anymore. I couldn't say when I left my body. It was like taking off a tight piece of clothing. I didn't feel my body, but I could hear everything. The screams, the fear, the footsteps. And at the same time, something was calling me. It wasn't a voice or a sound. It was a presence, a certainty, as if everything I had lived until now was only the beginning. I no longer saw the walls, the floor, or time, only a light that moved, alive, breathing. And that's where it all began. I didn't feel the impact, the scream, the water, or the towel they put on my face. There was only silence. And then something took me. It was as if I had been absorbed into a spinning cube, suspended in an endless void. Each face of the cube glowed with a strange light and reflected a different era. In one, I saw horses and spears. In another, people with masks running through deserted streets. And in a third, a dark sea full of burning ships. Everything spun without stopping. I was there, but I had no form. My body had disappeared. Only thought, memory, breath remained. Suddenly, I was hurled into an immense, silent space. It wasn't dark in a scary way. The darkness shimmered with golden threads, as particles of light were floating slowly in the air, forming figures that constantly changed. I knew, without anyone telling me, that this place was called the Hall of Decision. Around me floated books, but they weren't normal books. They were made of liquid crystal that moved, rewrote itself, changed before my eyes. I approached one, and it immediately stopped. The words that appeared weren't in any language I knew, but I understood them. It was my story, not just what I had lived, but what I had felt. Even my most intimate thoughts were there, written as if they had always existed. Then beings appeared. They didn't walk. They floated around me. They didn't touch me, just moved with an impossible softness. They were transparent, almost like statues of light. But the most impressive thing was their eyes. They looked like they were made of stars. They weren't human nor angels. I don't know what they were, but they looked at me with such absolute peace that it made me want to cry. They didn't speak, just slowly circled me as if waiting for something. And that's when the voice came. It wasn't a voice heard with ears. It was a vibration inside me, soft but immense, like the beating of wings crossing the entire universe. It didn't say my name, but I clearly felt it was calling me. I turned, and there he was. A man standing a few steps away. He didn't walk. He floated. He wore a kind of long cloak made of fragments of burning parchment. The pieces spun around him as if they had a life of their own. His face was covered by a mask made of living shadow, a shadow that breathed. But from his eyes came a golden light that vibrated like a celestial chant. I didn't feel fear. My heart, or what was left of it, was wrapped in such deep peace, I thought I might dissolve. I knew the figure was Jesus, but not the Jesus shown in paintings or churches. He was different, vaster, older, more real. He didn't move his lips. It was his cloak that spoke. Each movement, each fold created sounds that my soul understood as words. He raised one hand. In that moment, the entire space changed. We found ourselves inside a circular room, suspended over an ocean black as ink. Around us, only emptiness. In the center of the room was a hexagonal table, carved from a dark, almost living stone. Sitting in front of it, Donald Trump. He looked younger than in the pictures. His face was serious, focused. He was reading documents. Around him, sealed folders floated among blue flames that didn't burn, but pulsed as if they had a heartbeat. Jesus transmitted to me through the language of his cloak. What he signs that day will release or bind. Whole nations will be bound or freed by what he signs that day. His decision will fall upon the innocent. I tried to speak. I wanted to ask. Why me? Why show me this? But I couldn't say anything, only observe. Then Trump spoke, not with his voice, but with his mind. It was a strange language, metallic, dense. Still, I understood. He said, I will impose 36% trade sanctions if they do not yield. And immediately, the room vanished, and I saw faces, hundreds, thousands, Asian families in empty rooms, thin children crying, factories shut down, women on the floor. I heard the sound of empty stomachs. I felt their shame, their hunger. I cried without tears. Then Jesus' voice returned, deeper, more urgent. This is not the war of weapons, it is the war of numbers. And numbers can kill too. At that moment, an hourglass fell from the sky. It was upside down. The sand rose, as if time were going backwards. But when it touched the ground, it shattered into 1,000 sparks of light. And that's when fear completely took over me. A scream came out of me, one that wasn't mine, and I returned to my body. A flash of pain. A cry. Air rushed back into my lungs. My mother was crying. My brother was screaming. And I was there. But I was no longer the same. I was no longer a child. I had returned with a weight, with a warning, and with a name I never imagined associating with God: Trump. When I woke up, it felt like my body had returned, but my soul was still up there, suspended. I was cold, deeply cold, even though my mother was hugging me, crying. The lights hurt me. Every sound was unbearable. I wanted to speak, but I couldn't. And suddenly, I screamed. Not just any scream, but as if something was escaping from my soul. "The table is burning. The ink is running out. He must choose wisely." My mother froze. She tried to calm me, but it was useless. I was trembling, unable to explain what I had seen. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't a hallucination. It was a certainty. Hours passed. I couldn't sleep. I barely ate. My body was here, but my mind was still trapped in that decision room. With that man wearing a cloak of burning parchment, with that golden light that spoke without words. I asked for a notebook, and without thinking, I began drawing again and again. A hexagonal table, documents wrapped in blue fire, Eastern faces crying in the dark, and that living mask that breathed shadows. I had never drawn like that before. The lines came out by themselves, as if guided by an invisible hand. My mother was devastated. She wanted to call a priest, but I only wanted one thing: to remember everything. Every detail. 3 days later, I asked her, "Mom, do you know Donald Trump?" She was startled. It wasn't a topic we ever talked about. I didn't follow the news, let alone U.S. politics. And yet, I knew that name. I had heard it there. Jesus had shown him to me. I told her, the man, the table, the sanctions, the hourglass falling in reverse, the ocean of ink. I said that everything was connected to a decision, one that seemed small, but would unleash something invisible. What he signs that day will imprison or liberate entire nations. She looked at me with tears in her eyes, not because she didn't believe me, but because she knew I was no longer the same. At school, I barely spoke. I was distant. During class, I scribbled strange symbols, numbers that came to me for no reason. Tedis, predicate, always that number. I started praying. Not regular prayers, I didn't know any. These were phrases that, as if my soul spoke in a forgotten language. I begged for the table not to be sealed, for the blue fire not to consume the documents. I cried in silence, not knowing why, but knowing that something was at stake. Over time, I began to understand. It wasn't a religious vision, at least not how most people understand religion. Yes, it was political, but beyond ideologies. It was spiritual, but connected to real human consequences. I realized that every decision, even economic, has an invisible weight. Jesus didn't show me weapons. He showed me numbers, sanctions, and the human cost behind every piece of paper. A tariff can kill more than a bullet if it's born from selfishness, I once told my economics teacher. He laughed. I saw numbers. I saw faces. Children with sunken cheeks, women crying in empty factories, all because of decisions made at distant tables without seeing those affected. I wasn't sent to judge. I know that. Jesus didn't show me. He showed me gravity, urgency, and an immense love for every human being, even for those making those decisions. But there was a condition, that the choice be made with conscience, not with pride, nor fear, nor ambition. I believe what I lived was a message, but also a test, as if he told me, now that you've seen it, what will you do with it? And that's why I write. That's why I draw. That's why I speak. Even if they laugh at me, even if they call me crazy, I can't stay silent, because I know, and knowing is already acting. Sometimes at night, I see the hourglass again. I hear it shatter, and I wake up crying. Then I pray again. Maybe I'm just a girl from a small town, but I believe what I saw is bigger than me, and that somewhere, there is a table, a moment, a man, and a decision that hasn't yet been made. And if it's made badly, the faces will return. Not in visions, but in this world. I don't want that. No one does. That's why Noah. She came back with a message. Uncomfortable, disconcerting, and above all, with a warning tied to a name that no one would ever imagine. Trump. What she saw in that dark, golden, timeless place was nothing like a child's dream. She had never heard of a hexagonal table or books made of liquid glass. And yet, those visions now won't leave her, not during the day, nor at night. Should we dismiss all of it as mere hallucination? Or should we pause, reflect, and ask ourselves, why would a 14-year-old girl with no political interest or background have seen such things? And why now? Because this message isn't just about a political figure. It speaks about power, crucial choices, and something that may already be moving in the world's shadows. Do you believe the economy can become a spiritual weapon? That Trump's decisions might have eternal consequences? If this testimony has moved you, subscribe, comment, and share. Because maybe heaven has not spoken. It has already begun.